While there may not be a specific authority having jurisdiction that checks for code compliance in all cases involving machinery controls, there are certain aspects that may fall under the purview of various authorities having jurisdiction. Local electrical inspectors may have jurisdiction over the electrical installation, including the main panel and branch circuits. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration may enforce regulations related to workplace safety, including electrical hazards and machinery operation. Certain products, such as transformers and motors, may be subject to certification or listing by underwriters, laboratories, or other recognized testing organizations. Security concerns are valid, especially in the context of sensitive or proprietary information. However, there are strategies to mitigate these risks. Non-disclosure agreements can be used to protect sensitive information shared with third parties. Controls and equipment can be designed with security measures such as encryption and access control mechanisms. Adhering to industry standards and best practices can help protect against security vulnerabilities. While an inspector may not examine the entire machine, they may focus on the following areas. Firstly, verification of proper wiring, grounding, and protection. Secondly, ensure compliance with applicable codes and standards for electrical safety. Thirdly, check for appropriate ratings, connections, and grounding. Fourthly, verify proper operation and accessibility of emergency stops. Fifthly, confirm the presence and effectiveness of interlocks to prevent unauthorized access or operation. While there may not be a specific authority having jurisdiction responsible for comprehensive code compliance in all cases, there are still regulations and requirements that apply to the electrical installation and safety aspects of machinery controls. It is important to consult with relevant authorities, adhere to industry standards, and implement appropriate security measures to ensure compliance and protect proprietary information. When working with machinery controls and electrical systems, it's crucial to understand the different regulations and standards that might apply. Even if there isn't one single authority overseeing everything, several entities could have jurisdiction over different aspects of the installation and operation. Let's break down some key areas. First, the electrical installation itself. This includes the main panel where the 480 volts power comes in, as well as all the branch circuits that feed different parts of the machine. Local electrical inspectors are typically responsible for ensuring that this electrical work meets the requirements of the National Electrical Code, or NEC, and any local amendments to it. This means checking things like proper wiring methods, grounding, overcurrent protection with circuit breakers or fuses, and ensuring that all the equipment is properly rated for the voltage and current it will be carrying. Second, workplace safety. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, is responsible for ensuring a safe working environment for employees. This includes regulations related to electrical hazards, such as lockout-tagout procedures for de-energizing equipment before maintenance, proper guarding of electrical equipment, and ensuring that employees are trained to work safely around electricity. OSHA also has regulations related to the safe operation of machinery such as machine guarding and emergency stop systems. Third, product safety and certification. Certain electrical components like transformers, motors, and control panels may be subject to certification or listing by organizations like underwriters laboratories or other recognized testing laboratories. These certifications indicate that the product has been tested and meets certain safety standards. Inspectors may look for these certifications to ensure that the equipment being used is suitable for its intended purpose. Now let's talk about security. You mentioned concerns about protecting proprietary information and preventing unauthorized access to the machine's controls. This is a valid concern, especially in today's world of increasing cyber threats. Here are some strategies to consider. Firstly, confidentiality agreements. Use non-disclosure agreements with any third parties who have access to sensitive information about the machine's design or operation. This can help to protect your intellectual property and prevent it from being shared with competitors. Secondly, secure design. Incorporate security measures into the design of the controls and equipment. This could include things like encryption to protect data transmitted between different components, access control mechanisms to restrict who can access certain functions or parameters, and secure boot processes to prevent unauthorized software from being loaded onto the controllers. Thirdly, compliance with industry standards. Follow industry standards and best practices for cybersecurity. There are various standards and frameworks available, such as the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST, cybersecurity framework that can provide guidance on how to protect your systems from cyber threats. Now, let's talk about what an inspector might focus on if they were to inspect the machine. Keep in mind that they may not be able to examine every single detail, especially if there are proprietary aspects to the design. However, they will likely focus on the following areas. Firstly, the electrical installation. This includes verifying that the wiring is done correctly, that the equipment is properly grounded, and that there is adequate overcurrent protection. They may also check the voltage and current ratings of the various components to ensure that they are appropriate for the application. Secondly, the control panel. The control panel is where all the electrical controls for the machine are housed. Inspectors will want to ensure that the control panel meets the applicable codes and standards for electrical safety. This includes things like proper wiring methods, component spacing, and labeling. They may also check for things like adequate ventilation and protection from environmental factors. Thirdly, motors and transformers. Motors and transformers are critical components in many machines. Inspectors will want to check that these components are properly rated for the application, that they are connected correctly, and that they are properly grounded. They may also check for things like overheating or excessive vibration. Fourthly, emergency stops. Emergency stop buttons are required on most machines to allow operators to quickly shut down the machine in case of an emergency. Inspectors will verify that these emergency stops are properly located, that they are easily accessible, and that they function correctly. Fifthly, interlocks. Interlocks are safety devices that prevent the machine from operating if certain conditions are not met. For example, an interlock might prevent the machine from starting if a guard is not in place. Inspectors will confirm the presence and effectiveness of interlocks to prevent unauthorized access or operation. In conclusion, while there may not be a single authority responsible for comprehensive code compliance in all cases, there are still regulations and requirements that apply to the electrical installation and safety aspects of machinery controls. It's important to consult with relevant authorities such as local electrical inspectors and OSHA to ensure that you are meeting all the applicable requirements. You should also adhere to industry standards and best practices for security to protect your proprietary information and prevent unauthorized access to the machine's controls. By taking these steps, you can help to ensure that your machinery controls are safe, compliant, and secure. Remember to prioritize electrical safety, adhering to the National Electrical Code and any local electrical codes. Grounding should be implemented on all electrical equipment. Proper overcurrent protection should be provided by selecting appropriate circuit breakers and fuses. Also remember to protect your intellectual property by requiring non-disclosure agreements, implementing secure designs, and by following industry standards for cybersecurity. An electrical inspector is most likely to review the electrical installation, the control panel, the motors and transformers, emergency stops, and interlocks. The inspector will verify things such as proper wiring, grounding and overcurrent protection, compliance with safety standards, appropriate component ratings, and the functionality of safety devices. Remember that regulations and requirements can vary depending on the location and the specific application. It is always best to consult with qualified professionals and relevant authorities to ensure compliance with all applicable standards. Now let's consider some specific scenarios and how the relevant codes and standards might apply. Imagine a large industrial machine used in a manufacturing plant. This machine has several motors, transformers, and complex control systems. The 480 volts power is supplied to the machine through a main disconnect switch. The local electrical inspector will likely focus on the electrical installation from the main disconnect switch to the various components within the machine. They will check that the wiring is properly sized for the load, that the conduit is installed correctly and that all the connections are tight and secure. They will also verify that the equipment is properly grounded and that there is adequate overcurrent protection. OSHA will be concerned with the safety of the employees who operate and maintain the machine. They will ensure that there are proper machine guards in place to prevent employees from coming into contact with moving parts. They will also require that the machine has an emergency stop system that is easily accessible to operators. Furthermore, OSHA will require that employees are trained on the safe operation of the machine and that they follow lockout-tagout procedures when performing maintenance. The motors and transformers used in the machine may be subject to UL or other third-party certifications. These certifications indicate that the components have been tested and meet certain safety standards. The inspector may look for these certifications to ensure that the equipment is suitable for its intended purpose. Now consider smaller, more specialized machine used in a research laboratory. This machine might have sensitive electronic components and require precise control. The security of the machine's control system may be a major concern, as unauthorized access could compromise the research data or damage the equipment. In this case, the focus might be more on cybersecurity and data protection. The machine's control system might be designed with multiple layers of security, including firewalls, intrusion detection systems, and access controls. Data encryption might be used to protect sensitive information transmitted between different components. Regular security audits and vulnerability assessments might be conducted to identify and address any potential weaknesses. In both of these scenarios, it's important to remember that the specific requirements and regulations can vary depending on the location and the type of machine. It's always best to consult with qualified professionals and relevant authorities to ensure compliance with all applicable standards. Also remember to maintain detailed documentation of the machine's design, operation, and maintenance procedures. This documentation can be helpful for troubleshooting problems, performing upgrades, and demonstrating compliance with regulations. Keep records of all inspections, certifications, and training activities. This documentation can be used to demonstrate that you are taking the necessary steps to ensure the safety and security of the machine. Regularly review and update your safety and security procedures to reflect changes in technology, regulations, and industry best practices. This will help you to stay ahead of potential threats and ensure that your machine remains safe and secure. By taking a proactive approach to code compliance and security, you can help to protect your employees, your equipment, and your intellectual property.